come on in because we are here today to review the Nene Leakes interview, or I want to say conversation she had with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. Have y'all seen any of Nene Leakes shows? If you haven't, you should check them out because they're actually really good shows. I think Nene is doing a great job. And of all the ones that she's done, the one I like the most is this one she did with Cheyenne Bryant. And let me tell you why I liked it. One is I liked it because I think it was a breakthrough for Nene herself. Nene was asking the question at the top of the conversation with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, do you think I need therapy? Yes, Nene, you need therapy. But this ain't no, what do we call it? This is no shade on Nene. Everyone needs therapy. Me, you, your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother, your child. Everyone needs therapy. So the answer to Nene's question is yes. And Dr. Bryant, she needs therapy too, just like everyone else does. But another reason why I liked this conversation was because it gave Dr. Bryant a chance to shine in an area in which I think most of her life work is. It seems as if the other times we've seen Dr. Bryant, she was on interview sets with some of these toxic men. And a lot of times when Dr. Bryant was trying to do her thing, trying to help some of these toxic men, let's say such as Cam Newton, what would happen is they didn't want to receive what she could offer. And instead what they would do was they would flip it back on her and start talking about, well, is she even qualified to give the advice she's given? Here's the thing. If you start with the premise that everyone needs therapy, then what you shouldn't do in a therapy session with your therapist is try to turn it back on them. Because what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you just trying to make your therapist look bad? Or are you trying to really get healing for yourself? I mean, ain't y'all ever gone to a doctor that might be a little bit overweight? Haven't you ever had a pastor that has sinned before? So this question about does Dr. Bryant need therapy? She does, because I could see some areas in her own life where she probably could benefit from it. But like I said, we all can. But on this actual episode with Nene, I got to tell you, it was absolutely fantastic. And what I was most happy about was the breakthrough that Nene hopefully had in regards to her own situation. This was almost like a real life therapy session. And when I say that is, if none of you have ever been to therapy before, this is what it should look like. You're going to walk into the therapist's office and you're going to have something on your mind. You're going to have something that you want to talk about. Y'all know I do coaching. It starts the same kind of way. Everyone comes to a coach, a therapist, whatever the case may be, because something is on their mind and they want to talk about it. But what you have to be open to in therapy is letting the therapist guide you to where you're going to find your real healing. And let me tell you, that guiding you to that point takes a lot of time. It takes time to peel back those layers. Can you do it all in one session? Typically not. But I want to tell you, in this one hour video that Dr. Bryant did with Nene Leakes, she was able, and maybe it's 1 hour edited for all I know, but in that 1 hour, she was able to lead Nene Leakes back to the real source of a lot of the things that Nene Leakes is talking about. And let me tell you, therapy can be painful. Therapy can be uncomfortable. Therapy, when you walk out of the therapist's office, you shouldn't always feel so great. You should feel great that you had a breakthrough, but a lot of times what you also feel with is regret, because you start to think, wow, had I known this sooner in my life, what else could I have done with my life? You actually sometimes can get filled with regret because you wish you had gone through therapy even sooner, and you start imagining what mistakes you could have avoided, how you would have handled situations differently. Let me tell you something. There are a lot of bad therapists out there, a lot of them. And sometimes a bad therapist does not challenge you. A therapist does not help you grow. A therapist tries to make it so comfortable for you that you actually don't stretch yourself. And sometimes that's because the therapist wants to check to keep coming in. Because what a therapist knows is that therapy can be uncomfortable. It can be rough. It can lead you remembering dark memories that you really don't want to remember and don't want to uncover. And some people, it's just too much for them to handle. They're not ready for it. And as a result, they don't come back. So a lot of therapists, they have to try to gently walk you, but also keep you coming back because that's how they get paid. And some therapists, I want to say that they're too gentle. They're too gentle. So people go through years and years of therapy, but yet they're not challenging and not growing. If you are not challenged, if you are not growing, then you need to switch therapists. You need to find someone who is going to stretch you more. This is in anything in your life. Sometimes we change jobs because we're no longer growing at that job. Sometimes we change churches because we're no longer growing and being fed by the same pastor or bishop that we had for the last 5 years. Nothing is wrong with changing therapists, because what you got to remember is you're there to grow. You're there to stretch. You're there to have more enlightenment. And if that is not what is happening in your therapy sessions, you need to move on, and vice versa. So when Nene says, do I need therapy? Absolutely, Nene. Because what Nene did in this episode, and like I said, the reason why I like it is Nene represents most people. Most people. That's why it is no shade at all on Nene. But when she first showed up and started talking to Dr. Bryant, she started where most people start. They start with their problems here in 2025. They start with how the same problems they're having, everyone else is having. So they create this scenario whereby really none of it has to do with me. It's all external forces. So Nene Leakes started talking about how she has a group of girlfriends that are single, just like she is, and that they all think the dating pool is piss. Poor, horrible, piss in the dating pool, right? That the men are trash. She says she and her friends are all very financially stable. Some of them are mothers, some of them aren't. And what they're saying is, we can't find good men. All the men need therapy. Now, if you notice in Nene's initial conversation, it was all about how her girlfriends are just fine. It's the men that are trash. It's the men that are peeing in the dating pool. Well, let me have an eye opener to Nene and everyone else out there. The men aren't the only ones peeing in the pool. So are women. We all are. Okay. So the minute we stop trying to act like everyone else is the problem and we are just fine, that is the first step towards getting on the right track. Because let me tell you something. If you never take ownership that you are also peeing in the pool, what could happen is you decide, I just want to go to a different pool. I just want to go to a different woman. I just want to go to a different man. If you keep thinking that you're not peeing in the pool and it's everyone else, your solution then becomes, hey, let me switch pools and go to another pool, only to find out there's pee in that pool and there's also that you're also peeing in that pool. It is through therapy that you start to recognize the trauma that you have in your life and that you've endured in your life. And once you recognize the trauma that you have, you easily start to realize that you brought that trauma to the dating pool too. That's your piss. And you're no different from everyone else. So what you have to go through therapy for is to identify your trauma. And you also need to learn how that trauma is affecting you here today and how it's making you make different decisions today or certain decisions today, and it's how it's affecting you. This is the purpose of therapy. And in that, discovering yourself and how you got here, you also start to realize that you're both a victim and you're also a person inflicting pain upon others. That's the pee in the pool. Okay. So did you get born this way? More than likely not. You weren't necessarily born this way. More than likely, it was a behavior. It was learned trauma, learned experiences that came about after you were born. And honestly, we almost can say some of it might have happened while you were in the womb. Because let me tell you, when you are in the womb of your mother and you're connected by that umbilical cord, you already start to receive some of the trauma your mother might have been enduring during the pregnancy or before, and some of it was already transferred to you. So the reason why I say everyone needs therapy is because a lot of people were born under circumstances in which trauma was transferred from their mother to them even in the gestation period of when they were in the womb of their mother. Everyone needs to understand this. Everyone needs to understand that nothing is wrong with you. The fact that you have trauma in your life, you might have been born with some trauma or you experienced trauma. Because if you avoid therapy, then what you're doing is you're reconciling yourself to live with it. And you're also willing to carry it on from generation to generation. You're willing to pass it on to your children, and you're willing to bring it into any relationship you go into next. Everyone needs to take personal responsibility for healing and growing so that they can come into relationships more sober-mindedness and more aware. People have to stop running around and believing that the only people in relationships that are bringing trauma to it are other people. It's you too. You're peeing in the pool too. Once you take ownership that you two are contributing, you won't keep having sort of the victim mentality and that it's everyone else's fault, right? You'll realize that through your own trauma, it actually put you in positions. You walked into positions that you shouldn't have walked into, but you walked there because of how trauma influenced your decisions. I always say on my channel, you can't walk into the lion's den and then get mad at the lion for devouring you. You can't jump into a pool, a lake, a pool, a swamp because you want to cool off in the water and then wonder why the alligator swallowed you up. You can't walk into a burning building and wonder why you went up in flames. You can't walk and go into front of a speeding car on the high road and wonder why was the driver speeding. No, you've got to concentrate on why did I walk into the lion's den? What was I going in there to get? What was I paying attention to that lured me, but yet I didn't see the lion? Why did I jump into that lake? What, to cool off? Well, why was I on fire in the first place? Why was I so hot in the first place that I needed that lake, that swamp to cool me off, and then the alligator swallowed me up? Why did I run into that burning house to get something? What was in that house that was so important for you to go and get that you burned up in that burning house? Why did you run in front of that car that was speeding? Why didn't you go in the crosswalk? Why did you run across the busy highway? What were you in such a rush to get that you didn't even see the cars speeding across the highway back and forth, and now you got run over? It's easy to blame the lion and the alligator and the burning house and the reckless driver. It's easy to do that. But where your real healing comes from is you understanding why were you there in the first place? What lured you there? You see, because it's through that understanding that you then can start going back in your life and then going forward in your life, and now stopping, preventing negative things happening in your life in which you were a contributor of. See, that's why I always tell people accountability makes you stronger. Seeing your role, your part in something allows you to stop the mistakes going forward. Now, we're going to talk about how Dr. Brian walked Nene through her life. Now, when Nene first got here and started talking to Dr. Brian, she started with her most recent trauma that she may have. And one of the most recent and painful traumas Nene had was the death of her husband, Greg. She was married to Greg, I think, for over 20 years. Many of you may know the story. And what Nene started describing was that when she met Greg, he was much older than her. He was, I think, maybe 12 or 15 years older than her, maybe even more. But Greg was also the breadwinner for Nene. Nene at that time didn't make a whole lot of money, and Greg provided everything for Nene, and that was the role that Nene liked. As Nene says, she was a kept woman. Dr. Brian says in previous relationships, she was a kept woman. And what Nene said was, though, after a while, though, Nene actually grew. Her talent started to become more out there, more visible, because Nene is very talented. And what happened is she started to monopolize and capitalize on her own talent. And eventually her money, her earnings, her income outstripped her husband's income. So now, although Nene went into a situation in which she was kept and she was a housewife, her talent shined. And eventually what happened was her income outgrew her husband's. Now, did that play a role in their relationship and why Nene eventually got divorced? And then we're going to talk about how she got back together. I'm sure it did, because guess what? Those were new roles for not only Nene, they were also new roles for her husband, Greg. And this is what I'm going to talk about in marriages, because marriages never stay the same. Oftentimes people are really dictating what they need to be in a marriage. I need a man who makes more money than me. Great, I got it. What happens when your talent is discovered? Your talent is discovered in your business or on a job. What happens when your income outstrips your husband's, right? Does that mean that now you and your husband can't get along? Be careful putting rules on your life to restrict your options in life because you do not believe or you can't change with the times. You see, a lot of people say, I want this and that and this, because what they don't want to have to deal with, maybe they'll have to change when circumstances change. And when Nene and Dr. Brian were getting to this discussion about do they prefer being a kept woman or do they not being a kept woman, Nene said, well, actually, she has had both situations where she was dependent upon the man and where she also was the breadwinner. And what Nene said was, I actually prefer not to be a kept woman, because what she said was, when you are a kept woman, you give a lot of control away to the man. And what Nene said was, I'm not as comfortable with giving away all my power and all my control. Now, Dr. Brian was very interesting. Her response was very interesting. And this is where I'll say that Dr. Brian needs to do a little bit more investigating, and maybe she can uncover her position in her own therapy session with another doctor, because Dr. Brian says she has had both scenarios where she was a kept woman, where the man was the breadwinner and paid all the bills. And there was another situation where she was more like, say, equal footing with the guy, and they both contributed. Maybe even a situation where she earned more money than the guy. Now, what Dr. Bryant said was the reason why she has decided in her own life that she wants to be a kept woman compared to what Nene said was because what she said was, hey, when I'm with a man in which I'm not kept and I'm actually out earning him, she said that the alpha woman in her becomes more exasperated. But when I'm with a man who's taking care of me financially, the alpha woman in me is more dormant. So what Dr. Brian is describing is actually she has no control over her alpha part of her or her part where she says she's going to be more submissive. She has no control over it. And what she's saying is that the only way she can control it is if he makes more money than her. Listen to what she's saying. She also said that when she's making more money in the man and she's in her alpha role, she has a hard time believing that the man deserves that more submissive role that could come out in her. So what she's saying is, because he's not making more money than me, and I'm really here paying 50-50 or more of the bills, whatever situation, she is saying that she finds it hard to believe that man deserves her to be more of that softer woman. And as a result, she begins to resent that man. And that's what becomes to be a problem in the relationship. Now, what I want Dr. Bryant to do, I want Dr. Bryant to go back in her own childhood, and I want her to discover where she learned to value a man and put him up on a pedestal that high because of his money. Where did she learn, out of all the things that a man brings to the table of a relationship, where has she learned that the money-making portion of it is the guiding light on whether or not she will resent him, whether or not she will be able to be respectful to him, and whether or not he'll be able to lead her? She has obviously said that the money issue is almost like a guiding light for her. And absent of that, she has a hard way to follow him. She's got to go back and figure out where she learned that. And we're going to talk about that later on. So, like I said, everyone needs therapy. Dr. Bryant didn't just wake up with this sort of philosophy that she has. She learned it from somewhere. And she might have found situations where she thinks it validated her original thought. But I'm going to tell you right now, that original thought came from somewhere else. Maybe it came from a single mother. Maybe it came from struggling with her mother when they were young. And maybe what her mother told her was, things would be better if I just get a man who can help take care of us. Maybe money was tight when she was young, and maybe the missing factor was a man, and maybe she has overprescribed issues in her life to a man making money. But who knows? Maybe her mother had other issues. Maybe there were other issues at work. Maybe money couldn't cure it all. Maybe money couldn't solve all the issues. And now what has happened in her adult life is she has overascribed the winning solution on how you solve problems in relationships, or she has overprescribed the winning solution to money. That money makes everything okay. And if I have a whole lot of it, it will make it okay. Because what Dr. Bryant is describing is, she's not describing a scenario when there is a lack of money. She clearly says she has her own money. She ain't broke. She's not poor. So I'm not talking about a struggling financial couple. She obviously has the resources to provide the life that she wants. But what she is saying is that me and my money and he and his money triggers something else in her. It triggers the way she sees him. It triggers the way that she interacts with him. And do we know that it can also trigger men in the way they interact with women? Yes, we do. But all that triggering is also coming from learned behavior, either from society or by the way we grew up, or fears that we have, or traumas that we have. This is the point I'm making. Everyone has to challenge what their whole motivation is in life, and how they see things, and how they see the world, and how they see in relationships, because sometimes we think we got the right answer to how everything should look. And the minute it doesn't look like that, we want to cut and run. We want to divorce. We want to break up, because we don't know any other way than what we learned through our childhood and what we learned through our trauma. And a lot of times we don't want to do the work. That's what therapy is about. Therapy is about helping you do the work. Now, Nene goes along and she talks about the fact that at one point in time, she and Greg got a divorce. Many of you remember this too. Nene said the reason they got a divorce is because she was asking for changes from Greg. She was pointing out over and over again things he was doing that she didn't like. They also went to couples therapy. Nothing was working. So what Nene decided was she had to push the nuclear option, which was the divorce button, and she divorced Greg. And she said during that time of divorce, what she did was she dated other people, and then Greg also went to therapy. Greg got therapy, and he started working on himself. And two things happened. One is Greg got therapy. He started to understand more of what Nene was experiencing, going through, and how she felt. And then what Nene was able to do, she was able to date other people. And what she remembered was that, guess what? Once she started dating other people, she started to realize, wow, Greg ain't the only man with pee in the pool. She hadn't been single for a long, long time. When she finally was single and was ready to go on out there and get herself another man, one in which she wouldn't have to do all this work with Greg, she found out, just as she's saying today, that there are a lot of men out there who need therapy. There's a lot of pee in the pool. And she said, wow, I've traded one problem in Greg with another problem out here with all these other men. And eventually, these two experiences, Nene realizing for herself that the whole pool is contaminated, not only by other men, but by her too. And also realizing that Greg was over here getting some therapy and help. She realized that it was more worth her time and energy to remarry Greg and work on their relationship. And that's what she did. Now, what Dr. Bryant pointed out, which I thought was very, very good, was what she tends to focus on with her clients is not having to press the nuclear option, which is divorce and breakup, because that's the option everybody's using out here. Relationships don't even last. Marriages don't last. Situationships, this is what everyone is in, because what people haven't been able to do is how to learn to reshape their relationships. And this was a term Dr. Bryant used, and I'm going to use it. And it's called, how do you reshape a relationship that is clearly in the moment broken, or clearly in the moment it has shifted, it has changed? Any relationship is going to change. It is going to at one time become broken or cracked or not working the way that it used to. It used to work, because you're going to change. Your mate is going to change. How then do you allow yourself to reshape your relationships so they can be better going forward? This is no different than if you buy a house. Say you buy a house. You bought a house, you live in it with your partner, your husband, whomever. You've got 3 kids, a nice big house, a nice big 5-bedroom house. You grow through life, you raise your kids in this house. All of a sudden, all your kids are gone. They moved off, they have their own life. You and your husband is in this 5-bedroom house. You start to realize we've got 3 bedrooms we don't even use. They're the kids' old bedrooms, right? I don't like this about the house. I don't like that about the house. This is your marriage. You can decide that what you're going to do is you're going to sell the house. That's what divorce. I'm going to sell the house and I'm going to get another house. You could do that. Or, as anyone knows, you can decide to remodel the house. And sometimes remodeling can be small project. It can be, I'm going to just redo 1 bedroom and the man's going to turn into a man cave and the lady's going to turn it into her own private retreat. Or you may say that there's so many things about this house that we might need to still break this house down to the studs and remodel it. That might happen. That might happen. You might be doing a simple remodel. You might be breaking down that house to its studs, or you can do the nuclear option, which is sell the house altogether, right? And go get another house. But here's the problem when you go get another house. You go get another house and you're not getting a brand new house. I know people think, well, I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to get a newly constructed house. When you are leaving a relationship and you're going into another relationship with another person, you are not going into a newly constructed house. You are going into an old house that's been lived in by other people. That man, that woman has had other mates. They have. They've had other partners. They're not virgins. So when you move into that house that is new to you, it is old to someone else. And in that old house are still problems that you might have had in the house that you just left. Sometimes the best option is to take the house that you were living in, tear it down to the studs, and rebuild the house. And that is what Dr. Brian is talking about. How do you reshape? How do you rebuild an existing house in which it still has some of the things that you like? It's still in the right neighborhood. It's still close to your friends and family. It's still close to the favorite restaurants you want to go to. But the way the house is laid out, the way it's working, ain't working for you. But that is the work that people need to do, not only in marriage counseling, but individual counseling. And what you also need to do is that when you get ready to rebuild your house, tearing it down to the studs, do you want to bring in the same old furniture? Do you want to go out and get some new furniture and fill that house with some new things? Do you just want to redo your house and bring in the same old stuff that was in your old house? No, you don't. You want to go out and you want to buy some new furniture. That new furniture that you want to bring into that house that you got to tear down to the studs is you. You're the furniture. You're going to be the furniture living in that house. And what you need, if you're going to reshape a marriage or reshape a relationship, is you've got to go out and renew yourself. You got to go to therapy because you can't come into a restructured marriage, a reshaped marriage, a reshaped relationship, the same old person, bringing in that same old raggedy, dirty couch into a brand new remodeled house. You can't do it. And many of you are taking a rundown old couch and you moving into a new old house. And you wonder why in that new old house, you still got the same problems, because you got the same problems because you the same old couch that was in that old house. You ain't done nothing differently at all. Go to therapy, people. Go to therapy. Dr. Bryant went on to discuss how she has been in and out of a relationship with the same guy for 5 years. Go to therapy, Dr. Bryant. You need to figure that out. Why are you doing this? What's going on? Go figure that out. Nene said that as soon as Greg passed away, within 2 months, she was already in a new relationship. Why? Why so fast? Why so soon? How do you grieve a relationship, a marriage for 20 years in just 2 months? How do you do that? You see, then you start asking yourself, she went into a new relationship so fast, she got devoured by the lions. She got eaten by the alligator. She got burned up in the house. She got run over by the speeding car. You see, how did all that happen? What made her go into a relationship so fast? Nene says she's been here before. Nene told the doctor that, you know what? I've been in relationships too long. I've been in abusive relationships whereby I've been physically abused and I've been verbally abused. And I always wondered, why did I stay there? Why didn't I get out of it sooner? You see, and she asked the doctor, do you believe I went in too soon? Yes, Nene, you went in too soon. But what Dr. Bryant also pointed out was something I sometimes see with people, this balance between healing and jumping back into dating. You see, healing is good. You need time to heal. But if you're healing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, now you almost put yourself in isolation. That's not good either. What that tells me is you actually haven't healed. But what happened to you is you don't trust yourself to make a new wise decision. You see, you haven't actually learned the next lessons you need to learn. You haven't learned the tools to navigate the dating world or finding a new mate. And now you're so afraid. What you tend to do is you tend to isolate yourself, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get hurt again. That's not the solution. The solution isn't what Nene did, to jump right in to make yourself feel good again, right? But the solution also isn't to isolate yourself. The solution is therapy. The solution is therapy, learning where all these emotions come from, learning to define your emotions, learning to understand how did you get this way so that now you can grow and learn and stop the cycle. You don't need to isolate yourself over here in the corner because you're so afraid of getting hurt by someone. No, what you need to learn to do is you need to learn about yourself, how you interact with others, understand that other people, everyone is going to bring trauma to a relationship, learning how to recognize not only your own trauma, but recognizing other people's trauma and learning how to work through those things. You've got to learn this, because if you don't learn these techniques out here, you will be alone. You will be isolated. You will be isolated. And let me tell you, isolation sometimes isn't any better than sometimes what people describe in relationships when you're having to deal with a person who might be going through their own trauma. Both scenarios have their pros and cons. What Dr. Bryant painted out to Nene is what she does. Nene's safe space where she wants to go and feel safe and secure is inside of a relationship. So when she was grieving the death of her husband, her natural instinct was to get with another man, because her technique in life has been that where she will feel better will be inside of a relationship with a man. And that's why she went right back there. In a lot of ways, Nene got with another man to help her get through the grief of Greg. But where did Nene learn this? Where did Nene learn not to process her own emotions and her own grief outside of another person? Where did she learn that she needed to use another person to do that? You see, and this is where Dr. Bryant starts stepping Nene back in time for her to understand Greg wasn't the first person. And this is when I learned, and I said, listen, Nene, Greg was not the first person. Greg, you use Greg as well to cover up previous grief and hurt. Remember, what Nene does is when she is hurt and she is in pain, instead of confronting that pain, in front of confronting that grief, and also having to do that hard work, she finds it easier to get into a relationship with a person who can sort of help make all that grief and pain go away. When else did Nene find herself being wrapped in the bosom or the arms of someone else who was really helping her to grieve another situation? Greg did that for Nene, and for 20 years, she was grateful for that, and she was thankful for that. But once he passed away and he died, not only is she now grieving Greg, she's starting to grieve and feel pain and hurt over her original wound. You see, Nene says she sometimes sits in her house and she cries. Greg has been passed away for 4 and 5 years. And I'm not saying you still can't grieve a husband and miss a husband or a loved one. But what Nene has to understand is what she's grieving right now and here today isn't just Greg. She's also re-injured an old wound. She's also re-exposed an original hurt, because Greg was not the first person to shield her from her original wound. But now that he's not here anymore, she's exposed again. And so here we go in time with Nene is we've got to keep stepping you back, Nene. We can't just talk about Greg. We got to keep going back further and further and further. And this is what a therapist should do with you. This is the work they should do with you. Not just concentrate on 2025, but take you back in time. And this is why therapy is painful. This is why therapy is work. This is why therapy can be hard on you emotionally, because you are doing a lot of soul searching and you're recalling memories that are not always good. And it doesn't always feel good. And sometimes it's going to make you cry. And sometimes you're going to feel worse before you feel better. This is what it looks like, people. I'm so happy for this. If you haven't watched this show, you really need to watch what it looks like. Nene says one of the other things she feels is that people don't really understand the pain she's going through. They see this tough exterior that she has and they think that she's okay. And so what Nene said was, you know what, no one ever sees it. No other one sees it. And Dr. Bryant said right there, stop right there, Nene, stop right there. And this is what should happen in therapy. Lots of times you come into therapy and what people want to prescribe is when things happen to them or make them feel bad, they put it on the other people. One of the things Nene said was, why do I stay in relationships too long? Why do I not get out of them? Why do I go in them? Nene's thought about why she did it was through loyalty, because she's a loyal person. No, that's not it. That's not it. You see what I'm saying? When you keep saying to yourself the reason you do things is because of the benevolence of your heart and that you're there for other people. No. You're doing it for yourself too. You're doing it for yourself too. And that's what you got to get in touch with. It's too easy to say, I stuck with men because I was loyal to them. I stuck with men because I was trying to help them. No, not at all. That's not what you got to tell yourself. What you got to tell yourself is, why were you with those men? Because guess what you were getting out of it? Comfort. Maybe you were getting financial security. Let's speak on it. Say it out loud. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Say it out loud. You were there to get something too. You went in the lion's den to get something. You didn't go in there just to feed the lion. You didn't jump in the lake with the alligators to give the alligators some food. You jumped into the lake because you was hot and you was trying to cool off. You went there for a reason. You went into the burning house. What? To get something. You went over there to get something for yourself, and then you went up in flames and the smoke overwhelmed you. You ran across that road, that busy highway road. What? To get something for yourself, because you could have gone to the crosswalk. No, you were in a rush. You want to get something fast and in a hurry. That's why you went there. And that's where you have to start. So when Nene is saying that the reason why she stuck with men was loyalty alone? Absolutely not. When Nene is saying people don't see me, they don't see my hardships, they don't see what I'm going through, Dr. Brian says, well, why don't they see it? Because you don't show it to them, Nene, because you're closed off. What are you protecting? You're protecting your own grief. Because how can you show other people your grief when you don't really even know what the core of your own grief is, because you ain't even been to therapy? You don't even know what it is. So if you don't know the core of your grief, if you don't know the core of your issues, how can you then open up and expose it to others so that those people can have a level of empathy and caring for you? It starts with you. If you can't tell your whole story by yourself, how can anyone else understand your story? And how is anyone even going to know how to deal with you? Like I said, we can't keep saying everyone else is peeing in the pool. We're all peeing in the pool. So now that Dr. Brian has peeled back layers and told Nene that no, Nene, you and your girlfriends aren't just experiencing pee in the pool, you're peeing in it too. No, Nene, the source of your grief isn't just Greg. That's not the original source. You're covering up more source. No, Nene, it's not that other people don't understand your pain or understand what you're going through. You don't even understand the source of your pain. Let's keep going back, Nene. Talk to me, Nene. When did these things start occurring? What's going on? Let's go back to your mother, your father. And what Nene starts to explain is that Nene didn't even grow up with her father. Nene wasn't even raised by her mother. Hello, people. If you weren't raised by your mother and you didn't even know your father, go to therapy. It should be a no-brainer. It's not even a question. It's like looking at a person with hives all over them. And, you could just tell they're sick and they come and, girl, you think I should go see a doctor? Girl, you falling apart. Of course you should go see a doctor. It's not a question about, am I sick enough to go to the doctor? We are all sick enough to go to a therapist. Trust and believe me, we're all sick enough to go see a therapist. Nene said that when her mom was 18 was when she had Nene. And her mom had two children, Nene and a brother. At that time, Nene says the story her aunt told her when she was born, because she went to go live with her aunt when she was like 3 years old. The story she's always been told is that her mom could not care for her and her brother, and that her mom was running the streets. And so as a result, the aunt took in Nene and her brother, and the aunt raised her and her brother. Okay. Nene is experiencing this as a child. And so we want to hear from Nene how she saw it as a child. And then what we also want to do is we want to look at it through adult eyes. You see, because when you are young, you experienced it as a child, but you're an adult now. You've got to go back and look at situations and say, although as a child, these were the emotions I took on, but as an adult, I'm going to look at it differently. Now, what Nene says is, why do you think that your mother gave you away? And what Nene said is she believed it was because the man, my mother and my father, we're going to get that becomes a twist, had a bitter breakup. And as a result, my mother then had us go to our aunt's house because of the bitter breakup. And my mother couldn't maybe keep us or afford to keep us, or my mom was going through her own emotional trauma. This is what Nene took on as a little girl. But through adult eyes, also wrapped up in that is listen to what Nene said. If you are a person who you feel that one of the fundamental reasons why you were removed from your mother's house and had to go live with someone else was due to the fact that the only reason your mother had to give you up was due to money, you could come to believe in your mind that I never want to be in that situation, so I need a man with a lot of money. Because money is, no matter how much money you have, money with the man is representing a level of safety and security that is coming actually from your childhood trauma. When you grew up with no financial stability in your house, either due to your mother not having it or your father not having it, or there not be any at all, you could grow up to put a lot of emphasis on that. And what you sometimes find with people, women, whatever, they could have all the money that they need, Dr. Bryant, more money than anyone else needs, but they still need more of the money. Because what the problem is they're still triggered by the idea, what if the money runs out? What if something happens? And then they're triggered and they think of calamity. Everything's going to fall apart. Just like Nene had to be given away by her mother, that's what would happen in your life. If the money goes away, here it is. So what they focus on is they focus on the money of the man, because that's what they represent as what will keep the family together, the money of the man. They don't want to focus on the fact that they're talented, that they already make a lot of money, that they ain't nowhere near poor, ain't going to be nowhere near poor because they got loads and loads of talent and resources. No, they're still focused on that childhood trauma, that the only reason I had to get taken away from my mother is because the man didn't have money. That becomes their guiding force. And as a result, when they go out and seek a partner, they overlook everything else about the man and they focus on the biggest trauma in their life, which was the lack of financial resources, which is the money. And anyone knows that men with money have trauma just like anyone else. And men with money doesn't mean you're not going to get exposed on everything else that may be going on in a relationship. So when I say, why did you go into the lion's den and get devoured by the lion? I said you were going there to get something. You were going in there to get the money, which represented your financial security. And as a result, you didn't notice that there was a lion in the den and that was a lion. You jumped into the lake because you was jumping in the lake for the money, but you didn't know it was an alligator. Why would you jump? Why were you walking in the burning house? You was going over there to grab some money. But guess what? The burning house burned you up. You were running across the road because you had to get at that man real fast, that man with money. But what you didn't recognize was the speeding cars and you got run over. Stop saying you make choices in life only for certain reasons. And then what you can say in your life is say, is that the best way that I should be evaluating a relationship based on money? Is money the biggest deal breaker? Or should I be looking at all these other traumas that actually could be the reason that would really break up a marriage, and it's not just about money? When Nene was explaining her childhood, she also remembered that her mother, for the most part, even though she knew her mother and her mother lived in a different state, she would periodically see her mother. But she also recognized that her mother, and a lot of times, really kind of wanted to keep her and her brother over there. Now, as time went on, we then discovered that Nene's mother eventually had other children, 2 other children after Nene and her brother. So get this, Nene and her brother are growing up with her aunt. Her mother then eventually has other children. Nene describes a situation, and I'm going to tell you about this memory. Nene describes a situation where even when her mother visited, she didn't feel accepted by her mother. She said she will remember her younger sisters and brothers, whatever, 2 girls, coming to the aunt's house along with the mother and them trying to spend time together, the summers together. And what Nene would remember is when those 2 other girls, which are her sisters, would show up, the mother doted on those 2 girls. The mothers would come and they would all have nice clothes, nice outfits, nice everything. And Nene would say to herself, wow, aren't I your child too? Where are her nice clothes, her nice outfits? So what Nene could feel as a young child is, I'm not good enough. My mother didn't want me, right? And therefore, I'm not as good as my other sisters. What it could also grow up to Nene is, it could also make her become materialistic as she got older, right? Because she saw that her sisters had all these nice clothes. So one of the things that when she grows up, she wants nice things. But really, she doesn't understand that this sort of over obsess or obsession with nice things can also come from a place where she's trying to hide a hidden wound. Now, that might be how Nene felt as a young girl. But as an older woman, think back to this situation. Now let's see this situation as an adult, an older woman. And I see it completely different. I see Nene's mother, 18 years old, having 2 children, Nene and her brother. She can't take care of the kids. She's a single mother. She can't take care of them. She's still out on the street. She's 18 years old. She ain't ready to settle down. The aunt says, you know what? Bring your kids over here. I will raise them. That mother, even though she let her children go to her aunt's house, she eventually became resentful. She also probably became resentful to that aunt. Let me tell you, she probably became resentful. She also probably became ashamed as time went on. The fact that she didn't raise her own children, that she gave her children up, that she sent her children to her aunt. I'm telling you, as an adult, as a woman, I'm pretty sure her mother went through these emotions. As her mother matured and got older, and then her mother had 2 more children, guess what that mother is probably going to be on a quest to prove to that aunt? That I know how to take care of my kids. So as a result, when Nene is seeing that mother dote on those girls and show just how well dressed she's keeping her kids, showing all these things she's doing for Nene's sisters, Nene is internalizing as it is a rejection of her. But really what that mother could possibly be doing is showing that aunt, look, I can take care of my kids. I didn't need to give you my kids. I could have done it. And now I'm doing it. I just want to show you, Auntie, which is her sister, that I can be a good mother. I can do those things. And so what her mother could have been doing when she was there for the summer was putting on a show for the auntie, the sister, to prove to the sister, you took my kids from me and I should have been able to keep my kids, but I'm going to show you now, sister. And what Nene did was Nene looked at it from a child's point of view, that it was all that my mother didn't want me. Now, both things can be true at one time, but here is what the therapist should help Nene do. She should help Nene unpack what she experienced as a young girl, but also now as an older woman, and seeing the situation, look at it differently, look at it in a more balanced way. Is it going to be traumatic either way? Absolutely. It doesn't matter what conclusion they come through from unpacking it. To help Nene unpack it, the therapist would have to hear more and more stories about Nene's childhood. You can't unpack it all in one little hour session. It's going to take a long time, but these are the paths that a therapist would lead you down. Nene eventually remembered also that the reason why, or she discovered on her show, Real Housewives, that the reason why her father had gone away and was not present was also because it was discovered that Nene's father was not the father she thought was the father. Turns out that the mother, Nene's mother, had been sleeping with Nene's let me get this straight. Nene's mother was sleeping around with her real boyfriend's best friend. Nene's mother had a husband or boyfriend, whatever it was. He went off to the military. She then became pregnant with Nene. The man in the military started to think that, I don't know if Nene's my child, because there's rumors going on that my girl, Nene's mama, is also hanging out with my best friend. Come to find out, Nene discovered on Real Housewives that it was true. The rumors were true. The mama was sleeping around. And the mama fathered Nene, not with who Nene thought was her father all these years, but with the best friend. And in the end, neither one of them, for what I know, didn't have a relationship with either one of them. Either one of them. So all this time when Nene was feeling rejection from her, who she thought was her father, in the end, it wasn't even her father. This is what I'm saying about stories we tell ourselves, narratives we tell ourselves, resentment that we're harboring, positions that we take. We're oftentimes taking these positions from a trauma position, a place of lack of information, a place of lack of knowing. And this is what therapy helps you get to: the truth. The truth. And once you live in truth and you start to understand, what happens is you start to see how, yes, you were a victim. You were a victim. You were originally traumatized. But now you can also see, how did my trauma and how I related to men and to money and to everything, how did it affect my decisions in the men that I chose, the relationships that I went into? I brought that trauma there. So when I get into a relationship, bringing my baggage, my old couch, we can't just say that the only people bringing pee to the pool is men. Women are bringing it. We both are bringing it. I hope that after this session, Nene goes back in time and she actually really unpacks all this stuff and she figures out how now her past life is affecting her current life. But she's got to go back in the past to figure it all out. You got to go backwards before you can go forward. Sometimes you got to go through a little pain, a little hurt, a little uncomfortableness in order to heal and grow and move forward. Like I said, if you've never been to therapy, check out this session. It will give you an idea of what it may look like in your own session. Get a therapist, get someone you can talk to, get a coach, do something, but also be willing and ready to do the work. Don't just get someone, a coach or a therapist, that's going to tell you exactly what you want to hear and make you feel good. Get with someone who's going to challenge you to grow. I meet with people all the time. Sometimes I meet with them one time. Sometimes it's too rough for them. It doesn't mean that a person isn't trying to be gentle with you and kind with you, but I want people to get better, right? I want people to grow and get better. And the younger you are, the better. But older people, it's never too late. It's never too late to go to therapy, because even though you may say, I've lived a lot of my life, you still got life in front of you, and you can make that life in front of you different. Even though you've lived a lot of your life, you're still in relationships with friends and in-laws and mothers and fathers and children and sisters and brothers. And sometimes therapy can help you in those relationships. It can help you not pass on generational issues from generation to generation. It can make your existing relationships better. It's never too late. So I just encourage everyone to go to therapy, get someone you can talk to, and watch this episode of Dr. Brian and Nene. It was a really, really good episode. But that's all I got, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.